Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be again here with all of you. And it's also an honor to speak after Andy Haynes, who spoke so eloquently about health and climate. We're going to be talking about nature-based solutions with a people-centered focus. And I'll be focusing also on the side of adaptation to this equation. I come from FAS, Foundation for Amazon Sustainability, which is based in Brazil, in Manaus. This is a real picture that happened last week. That we are experiencing a huge flood, a record flood in southern Brazil. You might have seen in the news. So I think we're in an era of adaptation. I think that image speaks by itself. This is currently happening right now. We have in southern Brazil today, just read in the news, 600,000 people homeless and 2 million people affected heavily by this flood, which was an all-time record by many, many times. So lots of damage, lots of economic impacts on agriculture, lots of human suffering, lots of death. So it's the first message I'd like to share with you is this dramatic situation that is happening not only in southern Brazil but in many places around the world. But these images illustrate this. Since my topic here is nature-based solutions, I'll just bring you the image of land use change. Imagine that this landscape was completely covered by forests. This is tropical rainforest, not the Amazon, the Atlantic rainforests of southern Brazil. And this is what happened with the flood. Look at this. So imagine this building here, 6 meters of water probably would go all the way to the ceiling. This is the amount of water that flooded these towns. And why did that happen? Well, first of all, we had an extreme rainfall in terms of volume. But secondly, we have a land use system which is the opposite of a sponge that our friend from China was talking about. The IPCC predictions show that in this area of southern Brazil, northern Argentina, there will be an increase in total rainfall and extreme events. That's the scenario. So this is likely to increase in the future. And that brings the challenge of rethinking agricultural production systems that, again, do the opposite of the sponge. As we have heavy machinery, as we use a lot of chemical fertilizers, we reduce the capacity of soils to absorb water. And that also results in a lot of erosion that fills the rivers and lakes and so on. So there's a big agenda in terms of nature-based solutions to change agricultural systems deeply. One approach that we have been working on for the last several years is labor-intensive, because we not only have a climate crisis, but also we have an inequality crisis with lots of poverty. So labor-intensive, pro-poor nature restoration can be a way of linking these two agendas, the social inequality agenda with the climate agenda. In this picture, you see on the right-hand side an agroforestry system with acai palm, with cacao for chocolate and coffee and several other crops, which is very different from this landscape. So you can restore carbon and you can recover biodiversity and also improve working conditions. Working in the shade is much better than under sun in the tropics. Another image that I'd like to bring to you is one that Marcelo knows, who's been there. This is the Negro River, a tributary to the Negro River. On the left-hand side is the drought that we had, a record drought last year, all-time record, since 1906. that we have measurements of the river level. On the right-hand side is the sort of in a normal situation. And we had a record flood the year before. So these extremes are there. This is not anything unique, but I'd like to share with you what's the solution, what's the approach. But first of all, it's not only to bring solutions from outside, but also to engage local people and consider they're intelligent, they're clever, they have a lot of ideas, and they have to be engaged in decision making using their knowledge, building on youth. This is a meeting of youth leaders discussing climate change solutions, and also value indigenous knowledge, which is different from local knowledge. There's a lot of expertise of indigenous peoples, and here we have a participation of some that we're going to share their views tomorrow. We have to consider not only nature-based solutions per se, but also consider the fact that they have to be a part of a systemic approach that considers all the 17 SDGs, which are represented in the outer circle, and at the core, education and bioeconomy. That's the approach that has been developed by organizations such as FAST. I'd like now to bring a sort of more of an international picture here. There is a diplomatic mantra, which is common but differentiated responsibilities. So when we discuss adaptation, who is responsible? It's basically the US, 40% of total historic emissions, the European Union, 29%. Altogether, the global north account for 92%. And this is a big elephant in the room. I think we have an issue of responsibility which is not being adequately dealt with at the international arena. This is extracted from a Lancet publication, which is there. The UN Adaptation Gap Report shows that we are falling short of the funding. So it's only 20 billion in 2021, a decrease compared to 2020, whereas there's a need of something around 10 to 20 times more of that funding. So there's an issue of global moral injustice. And there is a discussion in the protocol that is going to come out of this meeting about a moral sin. So that can be described as a moral sin. Adaptation is insufficient. This is a publication of Climate Policy Initiative. There are many elements of this. Probably one way out of this equation is to deal with the debt swap. Many of countries, and think of Africa, for example, where many of these countries have huge debt. And these debts should be compensated by the damage that has been made by pollution coming from fossil fuels from developed countries. I'd like to close with a little bit of a lighter image. Everyone has seen the movie or read about it, the Titanic, 1912. This was a very nice big ship that went from New York to Europe. And then what happened? People were there drinking wine and champagne and dancing and having a good time. And then all of a sudden there was an iceberg. The captain didn't know of this iceberg. So what happened? There was a crash and people died, right? So basically, we are in the same boat with drinking wine, here the casino. But the difference is that we know the iceberg. The captain didn't know at the time, but we know, and every single presentation here talks about this iceberg, right? So the question is, how can we avoid this? And this is, again, an image from southern Brazil just a couple of days ago. This is sort of the aftermath of this huge flood. And I think that this image is so compelling that we should make a very strong message, saying that this injustice has to be dealt with in a very straight way. I think we need to invest in pro-poor solutions to tackle this climate injustice, to tackle this moral sin, which is happening right now. And there is a very simple way of dealing with this, which is to increase funding. If we look at the budget that is being allocated to wars in many areas of the world, is just ridiculous. What is being done at this time. So my final message is that we should invest in nature-based solutions. It's not a panacea. We, again, heard from our colleague from China many success stories. These are solutions that are available. They don't require new technologies, basically something that people know, indigenous people know. We can engage a lot of people thinking, in the case of Africa, where there is huge drought and a lot of solutions could be implemented there without much funding. So I'd like to leave you with this message. Thank you.